Welcome to OMReport by Andre Alpar, your interview-focused podcast on topics from online marketing to internet startups.
So, today's OMReport is with Joost. Joost, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Joost de Valk. I do WordPress and a bit of SEO, and combining the two.
Okay, so what was first, WordPress or SEO?
SEO.
Okay.
I picked WordPress because it was reasonably easy to SEO, and then I started building plugins to actually make the SEO for WordPress easier. But SEO was there first. I had a professional career in SEO before I even started in WordPress.
Okay, but you're an engineer by heart. I mean, you studied something like computer science or something like that?
No, I studied theology and international business and management studies. Okay. But I've been coding ever since I was 12 and built my first website when I was 12 in '94. So I've always been a coder. I've studied those two studies and dropped out and went to work as a Java developer basically. So yeah, I'm a coder at heart, but also a bit of a marketeer, and the combination sort of makes me into what I am, I guess.
Okay, so you have like a whole range of free products you're giving away. How does that work out? I mean, how does that pay off? Just because of the honor and pride and the number of downloads, it doesn't earn money.
No, it doesn't. It has generated a huge amount of visibility for me, which generates a lot of leads every day.
Leads for?
For SEO consulting and WordPress consulting.
Okay. So what do you do more, WordPress consulting or SEO consulting, or is it usually actually SEO
both.
WordPress consulting?
Yeah, it's usually both. So although I do some other platforms as well, I've done quite a bit for Magento, so I do and done the same
online shops or something.
Yeah, so I've done the same stuff there, released some free extensions, done an article on Magento SEO, and I tend to think I could actually replicate it for any other platform should I want to. Yeah.
So we were waiting for a Joost Magento SEO plugin?
Well, there is one already, a robots meta extension for Magento that I built.
It's not as big as the WordPress
one. My WordPress SEO
functionality-wise.
No, my WordPress SEO plugin is by far the biggest thing I've built so far.
Are you aware of how many people are using it?
People know. I know it runs on over 1 million sites now, but that is because it's run on a very large amount of multi-site installations.
Okay. So like WordPress and Mu.
So it's a couple of very.
Did you say Mu?
Yeah, multi-site is the new name.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple of very, very big ones.
But it started off with like the Greek letter, right? I bet it was confusing. It was like the Mu.
Yeah, it was the Mu first, yeah, and they turned it into multi-site later on.
It's a little less nerdy and it's a little easier to not make mistakes regarding it.
Yeah, it's a lot more useful that way. Yeah.
And so how do people have to imagine your everyday work? You have a fancy office with lots of employees, coders that do your stuff, and you just attach your name onto it? Is that how it works? With a great view in a palace, basically?
No. I only started out on my own in October last year. Okay. So I was an agency guy before that, and as most of your listeners will know, agency people make fuck all. So I started out on my own in October. Been doing very well, but I work from home. I like that a lot. I've got 2 kids, so I see them an awful lot. Number 3 is coming up, so I'll have a lot of time for that, and I do outsource a lot to all over the world, depending on what needs to be done.
So like what kind of tasks, like coding tasks or
everything?
Like the blog posts?
No, not my own blog posts, but I do outsource content writing for other stuff, yeah.
Okay. But the coding you do yourself, or you do some of the coding outsourced as well?
I outsource some of the coding.
Which countries do you outsource to? Like
depends
really offshore or like near shore or
near
friends Netherlands?
No, most of it depends a bit on what it is. So if it's sites or stuff for clients, it's usually Eastern Europe. For instance, for my SEO plugin, I recently had an English WordPress core developer do some of the stuff in there because I couldn't fix it myself. Okay. So it depends a bit on what needs to be done. My experience with outsourcing to...
So it's pretty entrepreneurial, actually.
Yeah, my experience with outsourcing to Indians, etc., have been less good.
Okay.
So,
others make other experiences. That's always okay.
Yeah. So I really like working with a lot of the Eastern European countries, and we'll have some pretty good experiences there. Yeah.
Okay. So, what the clients that you consult, are they like big publishing houses because they use WordPress, or do you like big shops, or are they focused on the Netherlands or the US?
Everywhere. So in the last year, I've worked with eBay, Salesforce, Sanoma, Tribune. I mean,
but
all
they
over
seem
the
to
place.
have more than one person talking to them, right? So, I mean, at least two of the companies you've named, I know others who also work for them.
Oh, absolutely.
So how does that work? I mean, how do you collaborate? So you
don't, because you usually hear after the fact that they work there as well.
Okay.
That's how big companies work. They just waste money.
Do you think this is a case, or does it probably also make sense because different people look at with fresh eyes and the same topics, and then you get new input.
The thing is, I do other things usually. So for eBay, for instance, most of what I do for eBay is training their developers in SEO.
Okay.
So it's more training than
making them understand why the marketers maybe want something.
Yeah, making sure that they don't fuck up in the first place.
Okay. So what is the kind of things that you make them look out for? How does one have to?
Well, the funny thing is, most web developers really like developing according to web standards, but they can't really convince their bosses that they need to spend a bit more money and do everything according to web standards. And I can usually show them that is actually very good SEO as well. So they can sell it a bit better to their bosses, and then when a marketeer comes to them and say, "Can we do this and this?" they can actually implement it in a nice web standards friendly way, and it usually works very well for their SEO. And then I teach them the small little tricks where these things are different, and show them that SEO actually makes money. But what happens in a lot of companies where I come in is that SEOs and developers are fighting, because SEOs are the marketing department and they hate the developers, and the other way around.
Or they're even separate, then they fight against other online marketers, against product managers, against tech guys, and so on,
etc. Yeah. So
but it's a very integrative kind of task. SEO. It's more integrative. It has to do with all other activities of the company.
Yeah. So
compared to SEA or anything else.
Yeah. So I try to explain that to those developers, and because I come from a development background and have some. Well, I've got some things to my name that show them that I'm actually a good developer.
Okay. So they trust you. And
they trust me,
and you can
and
take them on the journey.
Yeah, and that helps a lot. Okay. So that's what I do. I do that quite often.
But it seems to, if you're focused on the tech side of SEO, it must have been that your focus is mostly on page. Is that
yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that way you could always stay perfectly white hat if you're not cloaking around. It was also good for the image and good for the relations to Google, right?
I tend to think I'm very white hat.
Yes. Okay. So why are you white hat? I mean, especially from an intellectual point of view, wouldn't it make sense to test other things than that as well?
The thing is that most of the companies I work with can't even be bothered. If I do on-page SEO well for big companies, usually
they don't even need the links. They just need to be good on site.
Yeah, the rewards of that are astonishing. And then if more is needed, fine. Then I'll happily refer them to someone else